A gute Woche. This afternoon, the Rebbe Gesundheit began the Farbrengen. After the crowd sang for quite a while, Ad Mosai, we want Mashiach now. The Rebbe Gesundheit began. For this Shabbos we read Parsha Shemini. And as already stressed many times, this was the 8th time reading Parsha Shemini this year. We began reading Parsha Shemini on Shabbos HaGodel to Mincha, which incidentally was Ches Nisan. And we read Shemini 8 times this year. And as the famous expression goes, Shemini Shmoina Shomein. That when Parsha Shemini is read for 8 times, Shomein, that is a fat year. And as the Rebbe explained it later in the Farbrengen in more detail. And even though reading Parsha Shemini 8 times is something which this is not the first time, it has been so in previous Kviyasin as well, previous years. It's not every year that way, but there are years when it comes out in such a way. But nonetheless, regarding Torah, we know, as Chazal tell us, B'chol yoim yu beinecha kechadoshim, that we have to view Torah as it is new, as with the same enthusiasm as we would be receiving it the first time. And now that we've went through this, and today it is already completed, until now we just knew about it, but today it is so that we have read Parsha Shemini for 8 times. This has an effect on the entire year. That the entire year will be a Shana Shmeino, it will be a fat year and spiritually. And it has an effect on all matters. And primarily regarding the main matter. What is the main matter? The main matter is the Inyan of Geula, which this is the wish of everyone. And this is a bakasha, this is a request which everybody has expressed publicly. So, and especially when it is done in this house, which this house is a house of Torah and a house of Avodah and a house of Gemilas Chasodim. And this house stock is being given as well as making pledges for stock, as we just had earlier during Kriyas HaTorah when the Misha Berachs were made. And when a Misha Berach is made, it stresses a pledge towards stock. And it is also a house of Torah because we read the Torah here. And as well as a house of Tefillah, because primarily that's the idea of davening Tefillos here. And this will lead to it, that the Rebishter will fulfill the bakasha, the request, and the request will be fulfilled in a way of shmeina, in a fat way. In other words, that this house, this base tefillah, the base tefillah of Nasi Dareinu, will reach to a base tefillah yikorei lechola amim, as the pasuk says, not only for Yidden but as well as lechola amim, for everyone, for people in the furthest point of the world, far in Gashmias and far in Ruchnias. For them too, it will be a base tefillah, especially the year which we are in, which this is a year when Yidden have already gotten together, Yidden from parts of the world. Obviously, the Rebbe is referring to the Aliyah from Yidden from Russia, something which was not imagined in previous years, because to leave that country required special requests, special permits, and special procedures. And now many Yidden are leaving there without any problems, to the extent that that country itself is helping Yidden, that Yidden should be able to leave. As well as Eretz Yisrael is accepting them with open arms, not with any types of problems as was in the past. And all of this will lead that we will be zeicha to the nevuah of oid akabetz olav lenik botzov, on top of all of those that have gathered and accumulated in Eretz Yisrael until now. The Rebishter will bring together all the Yidden, that all the Yidden will all go out of Golas, and we will all go mechayil al choyil. And regarding the expression mentioned earlier, Shmini Shmoina Shmeina, that when we read Parsha Shemini 8 times, it is a fat year. The tendency of shemen is, the tendency of oil, something greasy, is that shemen is mifafeya bechol dover. That means that a couple of drops that is put into an ingredient which in quantity has by far more than the shemen. Nonetheless, the shemen has an effect on the entire ingredients. The same when we are talking here spiritually. The fact that Parsha Shemini was read 8 times, this gives an elevation and has an effect on all the 8 levels, on all the details, on all madregas from 1 through 8, until ultimately we will reach yet higher madregas. All of this is being affected by Parsha Shemini, by the reading of Parsha Shemini, when Parsha Shemini is read 8 times. And this also relates to the Pirkei Avos, which we are beginning to say today. Pirkei Avos begins, Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. The question arises, obviously the expression should have been in the Mishnah, Moshe kibel Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why does the Mishnah say Moshe kibel Torah miSinai? Sinai is only the geographic location where Moshe got the Torah. So the Rebbe continues to bring out that the word Moshe abbreviates Moshe, Shammai, and Hillel. And we know regarding the Torah, there was a basic difference between Hillel and Shammai. Hillel's approach was Chesed, as opposed to Shammai's approach, which was Gevurah. Yemin and Smoil. Which this is basically 2 approaches in learning Torah. However, both originate from Moshe. What is the taich of Moshe? The taich of Moshe is Min Hamayim Mishisiu. That is why he was given this name. He was pulled out of waters. Which means the concept of Moshe stands for revelation of Torah. And the revelation of Torah can be done in 2 ways. It can be done either in the approach of Shammai or in the approach of Hillel. This level of Moshe we find spiritually in each and every Yid. As it is known, the famous interpretation which the Alter Rebbe gives in Tanya, that there is a spark of Moshe within each and every Yid. Based on what the Pasuk says, V'ato Yisrael, Mo Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach ki'im liyira. You say, what does the Rebbe to ask from you? All he's asking is to be God-fearing. So the Gemara raises the question, is then God-fearing something so simple that the Pasuk says all he's asking is to be God-fearing? And the Gemara responds, yes. When we're talking about somebody who's in the level of Moshe, Lagabe Moshe, it is considered something minor. So the Alter Rebbe asks, true, for Moshe it is considered something minor. However, the Pasuk here is addressing all of Klal Yisrael. V'ato Yisrael mo Hashem Elokecha she'el mi'imach, the Pasuk says. And based on this, the Alter Rebbe introduces a concept that each and every Yid has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within him. And here the Mishnah is referring to each and every Yid. That each and every Yid, when he's getting into the level of Moshe Kibel Torah, each and every Yid is going to get close and to absorb Torah within him. It has to be in a format of Sinai. Sinai was a mountain. However, it was the lowest of all mountains. And this concept is required as a prerequisite to be able to absorb Torah. A Yid has to activate within himself the level of bittul, the level of humility, and that is when he's ready to be able to absorb Torah. And the same concept we find in this week's Seder. In Parsha Shemini, we learn all about the dedication of the Mishkan. And that is when there was the Tefillah LeMoshe, which is the Kapitel Tzadik, this year's Kapitel of the Rebbe. In Tefillah LeMoshe, there are 11 Kapitels in Tehillim, which are prayers of Moshe Rabbeinu. And in Tefillah LeMoshe, that is when Moshe Rabbeinu brings out, V'hi noyam Hashem Elokeinu aleinu, o ma'aseh yadeinu k'rineneu, which this Tefillah he said at the time when the Yidden dedicated the Mishkan. As Rashi brings on behalf of Chazal, that Moshe said, Yehi rotzoin shetishcha shchina b'ma'aseh yadecha. May it be the will that the Shechina should dwell in the work of your hands, in the fruit of your hands. And this brought about from Yidden a response, that Yidden responded, as the Pasuk goes on saying, Vayar ha'am, the nation saw, Vayaroinu, and everybody rejoiced, Vayiplu al paneim, they all fell on their faces. Which this is an expression of bittul, a sincere and true bittul, which was created in all of Klal Yisrael at that time. And especially when we are in this special year, in the year of Tehei Shnas Niflois Arenu, when the Rebbe will envision us, that we will be able to see the wonders of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That not only how the Rebbe is conducting this world within the realm of nature, but Niflois, until we will ultimately come to the Geula HaAsida. And that is when it will be felt in this Gashmistika world, how v'hoisel Hashem hamlucha, how godliness is ruling all over the entire world. It will be able to be felt so by each and every person in this world. Before the Rebbe began the second Sikha, someone announced that being that Tzaddik Goizer HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mekayim, let the Rebbe be Goizer that the Geula will come instantly. So on this the Rebbe commented that instead of utilizing this opportunity, meaning the opportunity of a Chassidish Farbrengen, that it should lead to Ishes Re'eu Ya'azoyru, to help, how each and every one should gain help one from another, gain assistance and strength one from another, so that everybody will be able to see what they can do as far as bringing Mashiach. This is being utilized to find for me, says the Rebbe, new Avodah. The Rebbe says what he has to do himself, he's well aware of, and he has done everything within his power as far as bringing Geula. And he's doing everything regarding personal matters, like asking brachas and so forth. Says the Rebbe, he brings the zettlin to the tzion, to the oil of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And there, the bracha is definitely fulfilled. Whether it is in the way of Tzaddik Goizer, or in a different way, any way, but as long as it's done. The Rebbe says he's moichel on the teva for finding for him new responsibilities. And what everybody should do is search for ways and means how each and every one of us can help to bring the Geula Shleima. And how is that? That is simply by increasing and learning of Torah, learning of Pnimiyus HaTorah and learning of Nigla Torah, as well as increasing in the observance of mitzvahs, that the observance of mitzvahs should be done in a format of Hidur. This is what would lead to the coming of Mashiach. And as mentioned earlier, that every Yid has within him the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. And when a Yid learns Torah, he becomes totally united with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Alter Rebbe brings out in Torah the tremendous unity which is created when a Yid learns Torah, how it becomes totally one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yisrael Reise v'Kutshabrichu Kulo Chad. And when a Yid learns Torah, he's becoming united with the level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself expressed in the Anoichi, Ano Nafshi Ksovis Yehovis, that the Rebbe Kaviyachol says that Ano, he himself, his soul, he has written and given away through Torah. And especially when we are at the end of the month of Nisan, after we have gone through the month of Adar, which Adar in itself is also a very special month. It's a month of a healthy and solid mazel for Yidden. To the extent how Chassidus interprets what Chazal tell us, Ein mazel Yisrael, that Yidden have no mazel. Yidden are higher than the level of mazel. And Chassidus teaches Ayin mazel Yisrael. What is the level of the mazel of Yidden? It is the level of Ayin. From the month of Adar, we have entered the month of Nisan, which is again a very special month. It's the month where we have celebrated Zman Cheiroseinu, because in Adar we are still in a level of that we are still slaves to Achashverosh. As Chazal say, even though the Nes Purim has transpired, nonetheless, Akate Avded Achashverosh Anan, we are still enslaved to Achashverosh. Yidden still remained in exile by Achashverosh. Nes of the month of Nisan accomplished, Yitzias Mitzrayim accomplished, that the Yidden went out of Golus completely. And especially, we just had 27 days in the month of Nisan. 27, as the Rebbe stressed Thursday night in the Sikha, that is 3 times 3 times 3. And the number of 3 is of special significance. Number 3 brings out a chazokeh, a strength and a permanency in a level of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And here we are on the day of 27 days in the month of Nisan. From 27 days in Nisan, we have entered 28 days in Nisan, which is Koyach Nisan. And soon we will all be entering the month of Iyar. Iyar again is a special month. Iyar abbreviates Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel. At the same time, Iyar also abbreviates Ani Hashem Roifecha. The Rebbe says he's our Roifei, our physician. And when the Rebbe serves in the capacity of a physician, it is in a way of a preventive cure. In other words, that there will be no need for medication to begin with. And this is also reflected in the Haftarah which was said today. The Haftarah which was said today was the Haftarah of Mocha Chodesh, because tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh, tonight is Rosh Chodesh. This Haftarah also relates to Geula. And the contents of the Haftarah is V'nifkadeto ki yipoked meshavecha, that the Rebbe remembers Yidden, just like this pasuk was said to David HaMelech. He will be remembered because his seat will be empty. The same way, Yidden, when Yidden are in Golas, it is Yipoked meshavecha, their seat is not occupied. Why? Because where is the true and ideal place for a Yid to be? A Yid belongs in Eretz Yisrael. And when Yidden are not there, when Yidden are in Golas, and not in Yerushalayim, and not in the Har HaKodesh, and not in the Beis HaMikdash, it is Yipoked meshavecha. And therefore this will lead to Nifkadetot, that the Rebbe will remember us Yidden. The Rebbe will remember us Yidden, and the Rebbe will take us all out of Golas. And then we will be Zeicha again to Eile Pkude HaMishkan, and Pkude B'nai Yisrael. We will have the Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash, which will be erected by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe continued the Farbrengen that this year is also a special year, that the Sphira weeks are in a way that we began counting at the beginning of a week. The first night of Sphira was on a Mitzvah Shabbos, which means that in addition to the regular counting of 7 weeks, we have Sphira Sa'imir this year in a format of beginning to end of weeks. 7 complete full weeks from beginning to the end. And now we are already completing the second week of Sphira, which is the week of Gvura. That means we have already completed the first 2 Sphiras, the Sphira of Chesed and the Sphira of Gvura. And the main thing is that all matters relating to Gvura should finish, should become completed. And all we will be left with is Malchus Shebegvura. What is the need of Malchus? That's the need of Geula. This can also be related to what we learn about at the end of our Parsha. Parsha ends off with V'yisim Kedoshim Ki Kodesh Oni. So the Medrash says, Yochel Kamoini. I would want to think that we can be as holy as HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Talmud Loimar. So the pasuk goes ahead and says, and brings out that the level of Kedusha by HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a higher one than it is by Bnei Yisrael. Chassidus teaches, Yochel Kameini is not a question. Yochel Kameini is a statement. That the Rebbe says, Yochel Kameini, that each and every Yid has the strength that through his Avodah and Torah mitzvahs, he can reach the level of the sanctity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Kodesh Oni. And then we will be Zeicha to the Gula Amitis V'Hashleima, even before Mincha. Even before we will be eating the Suda of Melava Malka tonight, that is the Suda of David Malka Meshicha, which has a Shaykhs to David HaMelech. And we will be Zeicha that the Rebbe will take us all out of Golas. The pasuk goes, Yosef Adnei Shenis Yodai, and bring Yidden together from all parts of the world. And all of this will be done amidst Simcha, with Tzchoik v'Simcha, laughter and joy, which just again brings us to the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, which is Yosef and Yitzchak. And the Rebbe will take us immediately out of Golos. The Rebbe continued and urged on an inyan which is Negei L'Maisa, and that is regarding that from, Alter Rebbe writes, that from after Pesach until Shavuos we begin to recite Pirkei Avos every Shabbos. every Shabbos after Mincha. As the Alter Rebbe adds on, v'yesh noyagin, there are those that have the custom to do it not only in the weeks between Pesach and Shavuos, but to do it for all of the Shabbosim, b'meshech kol Shabsos HaKayitz, all of the Shabbosim during the summer months. And there are those that can say that we're talking about such a prime time of Shabbos afternoon, which is time of Raiva the Raivin. So this time will be used to learn Chassidus and to Chazarah Maimah Chassidus, but to say that this we will use for something so simple like learning Pirkei Avos, saying Pirkei Avos or learning Pirkei Avos, it sounds kind of, this is not the thing, says the Rebbe. No, the Alter Rebbe writes that this is what we have to do Shabbos after Mincha. And therefore those that for whatever reason did not do so until now will definitely begin to do so hereinafter. And also that everybody should utilize their influence on their friends that have not been doing it until now, that they too should begin to recite Pirkei Avos every Shabbos afternoon. And as it is known, the beginning of Pirkei Avos we find in one of the first Mishnahs, V'hamidu talmidem harbe, that is the whole inyan to reach out to many, many more talmidim, so that everybody should feel zich in this way. The Rebbe concluded that all of those that have submitted mashke should come up now and announce the details. Mehem yiru, and everybody should see what they do, and others should also do the same. And then we'll continue with, everybody will be able to continue with shalashudas, whether they will eat shalashudas, or however the various customs are, or there, as it is known, it is the minig of the Rabbeim, which is discussed, to taste something, to taste some fruit or whatever for shalashudas. And all those that have submitted mashke went up and got the mashke and announced for whatever special occasion this was for. A gute Woche and a guten Chodesh. This broadcast, which we did this shiur, is Le'ilu Nishmas Reb Hirsch Moshe ben Reb Zion Ze'ev Halevi. Again, a gute Woche and a guten Chodesh.